Recently, the Palm Springs Kiwanis Club had another great speaker. Let's listen in.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here, speak to the Kiwanis Club. Yes, sir.
Yes, I'll give you $1 for that tie.
Well, it's more than that. Dennis pointed out that we are somewhat on opposite ends of the political spectrum. This is a Rush Limbaugh tie, as a matter of fact. I appreciate the introduction from my dear friend Dennis Daly, who I had the pleasure of working with for a while at KPSI. He's a quality broadcast professional, and he did a fabulous job as a news anchor. And I have an affection for him. He is a good man, and I enjoyed the time working with him. When I was 18 years old, in 1972, that was the first year that you could vote in an election as an 18-year-old. And so I went to my town clerk's office, and I said, look, if you can vote, can you run? And this is how long ago it was. He was sitting in his office smoking a large cigar. And he said, yeah, sure you can run. He said, why? I said, well, I'd like to run for something. I like politics. He said, well, I said, what do you got? He said, well, we have selectmen, which is a town office in Massachusetts where they don't have mayors. They have a board of selectmen. I said, that's a little tough. Public Works, no, I already work in the garbage dump. I don't want to run for Public Works. They said Park Commissioner. I said, Park Commissioner, what does he do? He said, well, he gives out jobs. I go, I'm going to run for that. And the guy says, well, go ahead. There's two guys that have been there for 20 years, and, you're not going to win anything, but feel free, kid, have at it. And so I did. And, we gathered our friends together, and we printed up little platform statements, and I went door to door to door. And on election day, my father stood at my home precinct with a sign, Gilgallen for Park Commissioner. And amazingly, I won. It's incredible. So I was the youngest elected official in the history of Massachusetts. And I was involved in politics and wound up as a job, because it didn't pay anything. I worked in the Framingham, what they called the Framingham Reduction Plant, which was, I think, the last burning incinerator in the United States of America. And it was nasty work. I learned the difference between garbage and trash. Now, a lot of people don't know. It's one single invention. That's the difference between garbage and trash. And that is your kitchen sink disposal. Half my town, everybody had a disposal. That was the side you wanted to pick up the garbage on. The other half, nobody had a disposal. And that's the part of town, if you upset the foreman, that you were assigned to that day. Because the foodstuffs in the summertime and stuff like that, as you can imagine. So in the process of working, a friend of mine called and said, look, we had a member of Congress at the time named Father Drinan. Some of you might be old enough to remember him. He was a Jesuit priest. And the Pope informed him that his time in the United States Congress was over. And so he left, and it was left an open seat. And it's very rare that you have an open seat for Congress. So there was about 30 people running. And a friend of mine said, look, I got a buddy of mine who, he lived outside the district, but he just moved in, he's going to run. And you want to help him out? I said, sure, I'll help him out. So his name was Barney Frank. And so I took Barney to the Union bars, So we go into the Union bar, and the bartender said, what'll it be? And he said, I'll have an amaretto on the rocks. The bartender looked at him. I go, he'll have a Budweiser, and I'll have a Budweiser. And I told him, look, no more amaretto on the rocks, okay? So, make a long story short, the guy got elected. And I wound up on a Friday working in the incinerator, and on a Monday in a suit and tie working at Capitol Hill. And my father said to me, same job. Same job. Garbage in, garbage out. So that was an interesting experience for a young guy to work in this amazing environment. It really is an amazing building, historic building. And I fell in love with the city, and I fell in love with the House of Representatives. But I found, as I went from, somebody who was brand new there with eyes this big, I found myself becoming more conservative. Part of the reason was, you walk into an elevator in the House of Representatives, and there's a guy who's sitting there in a little stool, and the members of Congress walk in. Now, 75 years ago, when the elevator was invented, there was probably an elevator operator, who knew how to operate the elevator, knew how to slow it down, had a brake, knew how to go up and down. Well, now there's 7 buttons on the elevator, okay? But he's still sitting there. The congressmen walk in, they go, 2. And this guy pushes 2 for him. So I said to the guy, how much you make? How much you making as an elevator operator? He said, I make $40,000 a year. This is 1980. I said, $40,000 a year? How many elevators are there here? Oh, there's 100 elevators here. I said, wow, that's government. That's government. And as I watched that and I saw money just being whizzed away, I became a more conservative. But it was also a time when Ronald Reagan was the President of the United States, and I had the opportunity to see him deliver several States of the Union address. And I felt like I was, that the particular party that I was working in, I felt like they were leaving me. I didn't feel like I was necessarily leaving them, but I felt like they were leaving me. And so I got out of the business. I got out of politics. I went back to work in one Senate campaign for a guy named Ed Markey, who's now the senator from Massachusetts. And how that ever happened, I'll never understand. You realize these politicians are just like us. I mean, really, they don't know any more than we really know. They have a certain language that they use to confuse us, and they're very, very good at that. So I went into the next best business. I went into the bar business, and I became a bartender. My grandmother told me when I was 10. She said, and she was a Democratic committee chairwoman for Lackawanna County in Scranton, Pennsylvania. And she told me, she said, you have to find a job that will allow you to use your bullshit, because that you have plenty of. And so I was a bartender. I was in politics, then I was a bartender. Now I'm working behind the bar, and a couple of years ago, before that, I decided to become sober. I'm allergic to alcohol. I break out in handcuffs. It's not a pretty picture. So in the process of that, I'm working behind this bar, and a general manager for a country music station is a customer of mine. Nice guy. And his name was Charlie Lowe. And I overheard him say, we're looking for somebody to take one of our Redskins players' places and do the Redskin report on our station. I just happened to be walking by and overheard it. And for some reason, I don't even know why, I leaned over and I said, Charlie, I could do that job. And Charlie said, Rich, this is not Scranton, Pennsylvania. This is Washington, D.C. It's the 5th market in the country. Give us a menu and 2 Heinekens, and then leave us alone. We're talking business. So he just dusted me. So I went and got the Heinekens, and I don't know what possessed me. I popped open the Heinekens, and I put them on the table right in front of him, and I said, Charlie, let me tell you something. I'm not in your office. You're in my office, all right? In fact, you're sitting at my desk right now. I said, everybody in this town has an athlete doing their sports report. Most of them you can't understand. And I think you could be the first station in America to have a fan's perspective. And what better fan than a bartender? And I'm the best bartender in town. What else? What do you have? And that was it. I let it go. Spoke my piece. I let it go. So about 2 days later, I get a phone call. Hi, Rich Gilgalloon, this is Charlie from MZQ. It's a country station. He goes, I haven't slept in 2 nights. If we were to somehow make this happen, do you think you could do this job? I said, Charlie, I was born to do this job. Man, are you kidding me? This is my job, I'm telling you. He said, all right, well, he said, come in and make a tape. We'll see what it sounds like. So I went in, I made a tape. They loved the tape. I get a call from Charlie. He goes, look, this is so big. Nobody's ever done this. This is 1985, before ESPN. He said, I have to take this tape up to Sumner Redstone at Viacom headquarters in New York. Are you sure? Are you positive that you could do this? If I go up there, I go, I'm your guy. So he goes up and he runs it by Sumner Redstone, and he calls me from New York. He says, all right, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. He goes, I'm going to put you on Friday and Monday morning, 6:45 and 7:45. And you can do a 2-minute editorial, different ones, twice on Friday and twice on Monday. And I'll give you $300. And I said, all right. Are you sure you can do it? Yes. I hung up the phone. I thought, I can't do this job. Am I out of my mind? And then I thought to myself, $300. $300. I'm walking up and down the bar. I'm like, I have to work 3 10-hour shifts to make $300. And now I'm going to make $300 for chirping for 3 minutes on Friday and Monday morning. So for 7 years, I did that. Now, the interesting point that I want to address today is that 2 days after he hired me, Charlie got in an argument with the brass over something that had nothing to do with me. Had to do, I guess he got his wife a car on trade or something, which general managers in radio have been known to do. But he got caught, he got fired. And I've never, not once, talked to him since that day. So the guy hires me, I sign a deal, I've never spoken to him again. Changed the course of my life. For 7 years, I closed the restaurant at 3 in the morning, and I drove over to the station. I took a quick 2-hour nap on a couch in the station on Friday mornings and Monday mornings. Had a big gulp of coffee, one of those big gulps, not a gulp of coffee, but a coffee. Did my thing and I went home. So 7 years later, I said to the guys, I'm still making that same 300, okay? I said, how about a raise? Come on, I've been here 7 years, I'm well known in the community. The people I was working with, the morning team, were getting $100,000 bonuses,
I'm sorry. It's that guy.
It might be that guy, finally.
He's talking to a Kiwanis club.
No, that's a bill collector, I'm sure. And so, 7 years later, I asked for a raise, nothing in the budget. I said, okay. So, I got a call from a guy named Scott Meyer out of the clear blue. He says, Rich, yeah, we're going to start a sports station here in Washington, D.C. And I heard your stuff, and I want you to come down to the Occidental Hotel for lunch. I'm going, Occidental Hotel, well, I can come, but I'm going to be in a Chadwick's tie and a starched white shirt because I have to work right after that at the restaurant. He said, all right, come on down. So I go down and I talk to him. He goes, we want you to do afternoon drive on a brand new sports station here in town. and I'll give you $60,000 a year.
Is that right?
And I said, I don't know why, I said, make it 80. But I looked at him. He goes, I'll give you 70 and don't ask for anything else. I go, that's a deal. That's a deal. I was like, 70 grand. I couldn't believe it. He was going to be the general manager. So I look forward to a long relationship with him. Unfortunately, he had a falling out with the management, the ownership, and they let him go. So I had a 20-minute conversation with him, and he changed the whole course of my life. I went from editorial comment to talk show host. 3 hours of talking. So the thing is, you never know. I mean, you never know who you're talking to today. They could change your life like that, in a heartbeat. And that's exactly what happened to me. And I've been in the business for 32 years. 32 years on radio. Still can't make a living. It's an amazing, radio is, as Dennis would know, Dennis is a incredibly intelligent guy and very deep. And he would know that Marconi has said many times before he died, he said, people say I invented radio. I didn't invent radio. I mean, I just happened to find it. Those radio waves have been there from day one. I just figured out a way to, I talk into a little tube like this. Now, if you're on the 10, if you're in a building on the 14th floor with an FM signal, if you're in a basement, it doesn't matter. You can hear me. I mean, we take that for granted, like it's no big deal. It's a pretty big deal. You're sitting in one room, talking into one mic, and in some cases, you have 30,000 people listening to you in the afternoon on a regular basis. And these other guys have millions and millions of people listening. It really is an amazing thing. It's a miracle, radio. It really is. Never mind television. And so, I've never gotten over the fact that these two guys that I spoke to for 30 minutes changed my life. From a bartender to somebody that actually has a career, which I never thought I'd have, and for which I'm very grateful. And those are important things. I come to you today a little bit heavy in my heart because I had a conversation with a friend of mine on Friday who had some back pain in the fall and wound up having back surgery, which didn't mitigate his pain at all. And so they brought him back in, 58 years old, they brought him back in, and they found out that the real reason for the pain was bone cancer. And so he was riddled with it. And so I talked to him Friday, and I was going to go out there this week. And it's amazing, really. He said to me, Coachy, that's the term of affection that they use for me. Coachy, don't bother coming. He goes, I don't have 2 days left. And I said, well, hang in there. He said, don't worry. But we had an opportunity, a gift from God, to say our goodbyes and our farewells. And I told him that I know it's not a religious organization, but I told him that Paul wrote that Jesus said, Paul wrote that Jesus came so that you, who have labored under the fear of death your entire life, need labor under it no more. I don't know where that came from me. And so we chatted a little, and we expressed our love and affection. He was a golfer, a golf friend of mine. Anybody else play golf in here? There's nobody like a golf buddy, because they know you, okay? Spend 4 hours with somebody under the gun, and you develop an understanding of who that person is. And we must have played 1,000,000 miles of golf. And sure enough, you know, Sunday morning at 3, I got a call from his daughter, who said that he had, surrounded by his children and grandchildren, he blinked his eyes and was gone. So life is very precious, and there are angels in this room, perhaps, that could change your life, change the whole course of your life with one or a 20-minute conversation, you know. And I just think if we could see each other, you know, through those eyes, that the world probably would be a little bit better place. My show, I am called upon on a daily basis to give the news of the day from a conservative perspective in an entertaining manner. The news of the day is simple. Of course, there's, as you know, there's 2 sets of news these days, isn't there? I mean, it's unbelievable, isn't it? It's amazing. A friend of mine was going on vacation, and I wound up as a house sitter for her. She's a liberal, a dear friend. And when I got to the house, I'm looking for Fox News on the cable. It's not on here. Where the hell is it? Where's 55? So I call her. I go, "Where's Fox News?" She goes, "Oh no, we took that off that TV." I go, "Oh." So now I got to watch these guys. So I was like, oh. I mean, they almost turned me around. You know, when that's all you see, pick a side. That's all you can do. I am uncomfortable, as I think a lot of us are, with the tone that's directed from both sides occasionally. But they're serious matters, and it's a very interesting time to be alive in America today. You know, there's some great people here, great organizations. It's a controversial show. I'm probably the most beloved talk show host in the Coachella Valley. I'm also the most hated talk show host in the Coachella Valley. I can promise you that. But it's an honor to do so. It's an honor to be able to... Look, they don't have talk shows like mine in Cuba. They don't have talk shows like mine in Tehran. You know? Talk radio is a uniquely American invention. Because I would be shot, you know, for the last 8 years. I would have been shot. Now, not so much. But anyway, I thank you for your time and your attention. Congratulations to all of you.
For more, go to KIWANIS PALM SPRINGS.org.